to the 2024 Stanley Cup odds. The Hurricanes remain the favorite, followed by the Panthers and the Rangers. Interesting that they all are coming from the similar side of the bracket.
While the Oilers have the top-end talent, I still don't think they have enough depth, and Stuart Skinner does not scare me in net. So I will take a long series from the Oilers and the Kings, and ultimately, I think the Stars are the ones coming out of the West for the Stanley Cup.
The early line, only on SportsGrid.
DraftKings making a progressive move, I think, that most other companies are also going to do or have done in the past. Adding someone from the government or someone you would say in legislation to become their responsible gaming leader here. And in this case, her name is Lori Kalani.
And it'll be interesting to see if other companies try to follow suit in terms of hiring former lobbyists to head responsible gaming.
Newswire, only on SportsGrid.
Game Time had 35 in the first half, Cam. And then, of course, he did not have another point the rest of the game.
Lillard's, it's playoff game time. This guy will show up. He will hit shots. Indiana, you better respond here because I'll tell you, that's a bad, bad, bad loss. We were wrong, Carver. Like, hey, I admit, I was on the Pelicans. This game, I lost.
Pharrell Coast to Coast, only on SportsGrid.
This is SportsRage. I am Morency, the pimps, the players, the hustlers, the people, the bustler, and everybody else in between. Throwing it down here right now. Level 2 has begun. And I'm watching. They're at the intermission right now. They're showing highlights here. And great job. I don't know who's talking, but they just showed a highlight of the Colorado and the Winnipeg face-off, in which the referee blocked the Winnipeg Jet player. And they also showed another highlight where the same thing happened in the Nashville game. And now they're showing the correct way to do it. It's amazing to me. And I got to say, I've always felt, and I've defended the NHL refs a lot over the years, in that I still maintain that they're the best out of all the leagues. They really are. But there's been some really questionable officiating to me in the NHL playoffs. And I got to be honest, like I you know, whether a team from Canada wins or not is kind of irrelevant to me, but it's not a coincidence. It seems like it can't be coincidental all the time that you'll notice that the Canadian team in every series never gets the same amount of calls, just point blank. Like the Boston Bruins are a good example. Like the Leafs get called for everything. And the Bruins are like, you know, holding on the sticks, tripping people in the corners, holding people. The other day, Brad Marchand coming off of a face-off, he broke Marner's stick. Marner might be a big wuss bag and stuff, but whatever. You're not allowed doing that. You know what I'm saying? Like he broke his stick off the face-off, like point blank. Like he just smashed the stick in half, and there's no penalty. And it's like, well, what do you think? Did Marner just break the stick in half by himself, ref? Like you see the stick, you saw it happen, right? Boston scored a goal the other night on Saturday. McAvoy held on to whoever it was on the Leafs stick, like behind the net, and it led to the puck going in front of the net. It was like, should have been a penalty for holding. Ref didn't call it. Vancouver and Nashville. Dude, the amount of penalties in this series, what is it, 25-8 or something like that? Is that just by chance, right? Like literally, like the Vancouver Canucks have, the other night by the end of the game, it was 23-6 or 24-6. So I will do the math, whatever it is tonight. But it's an effing joke. Like Nashville get away with murder, and anytime Vancouver does anything, it's a penalty. right? And I'll tell you, like, people wondering, well, why, right? I'll tell you why, because Canadian teams aren't part of the Nielsen ratings. They lose half the television market, right? So, like, TNT and every, like, the American network and ESPN, they don't want Canadian teams on TV. They don't make money from it. They can't sell advertising for it. Like, the ads are being sold by the Canadian networks, not the American network, and it bothers the hell out of them. They're losing money, point blank. So that's why they don't like teams from Canada advancing. Same thing with the NBA, right? Like, they lost money when the Raptors made the finals. ABC's numbers were not good. The international numbers were great, right? But the actual, like, ABC were upset. So it's not like some Canadian, like, conspiracy, you know, that Gary Bettman or whatnot, you know, personally hates the country. But it's bad business for them if Canadian teams, like an all-Canadian Stanley Cup final would be death for them. Like, the ratings would be horrible. Like, if the Stanley Cup finals were the Ottawa Senators versus the Vancouver Canucks or the Calgary Flames or something, it would be the end of the league. Let's roll. Level 3 has begun. This is Sports Rage. I am Gabriel Morency, the pimps, the players, the hustlers, the people of Bust Them, and everybody else in between, including you. The Rageaholic. Shout out to all of our AM radio affiliates joining us, including the Mightier 1090, ESPN Radio, the 50,000 watt juggernaut in the house. We're breaking it down playoff style tonight, and the Milwaukee Bucks will play another game as the Milwaukee Bucks have just beaten the Pacers 111 to 90. They didn't just beat them; they throttled them without Giannis and without Dame Lillard. Wild night tonight at Madison Square Garden. Jon Stewart. Not laughing. Normally a very funny man and a comedian, but he wasn't laughing after Maxey buried a 3 right in front of him as he was sitting courtside to tie the basketball game, send it to overtime, and the Philadelphia 76ers extend the series. The Vancouver Canucks and the Nashville Predators are scoreless tonight in an elimination game for the Nashville Predators. Vancouver, if they win, they will win the series. It's in Vancouver. There's a bunch of people on the street. There's good, nice weather in Vancouver. And the Canucks potentially could win a playoff series. Vancouver PD are on high alert tonight, but the Canucks are going to need to score. And we got a scoreless hockey game. The in-game total right now is 2.5. 2.5 with 1 period left to play. I've got a $1,500 parlay. I could win $1,500 if the Winnipeg Jets win the hockey game tonight. But to quote the great Brian Johnson and AC/DC, shot down in flames. Shot down in flames. Colorado 5, Winnipeg 3. There's 10 minutes left. This would take a sheer miracle. And I've said it before, I'm going to say it again. For everybody that's in Winnipeg and your stupid whiteout. So everybody wears white when they go to a Winnipeg Jet playoff game. They call it a whiteout and stuff. Number one, there's enough white people in an arena, all right, to begin with in a hockey game. You don't need to wear a white T-shirt, all right? It's white enough to begin with. Number two, you got to figure that if your team has been around for as long as the Winnipeg Jets have, and you've been doing this whiteout thing forever, and you never win anything, and you're amongst the biggest chokers in professional sports, I don't know, maybe you should try a blue out, right? Maybe you should try a blackout. Maybe you should try a pink out. Or maybe you should try any other effing out besides the stupid whiteout stuff that you do. I'm sure it's real intimidating to the Colorado Avalanche to walk into an arena with 20,000 people wearing white when they're wearing white. Great job, Winnipeg. So, 5-3 for the Colorado Avalanche right now. So, man, we're going to break it down. NFL draft. We'll get Rick Saratella's grades now that the dust is starting to settle. And rookie minicamps are next week. Can't wait for the start of the National Football League season. And we'll get you caught up to date with all of the numbers. Dallas and the Clippers right now. The Mavericks are 3-point road favorites. And hard to trust the Mavericks. I'm starting to buy into the Clippers winning this basketball game tomorrow night. And then we're going to go back to Dallas. And listen, business, business is better for the NBA when they have games on TV. And if you look at the weekend schedule right now, it's pretty bare, okay? It's pretty thin. It's thinner than a script in that Sydney Sweeney, the Sydney Sweeney girls movies. Like, what was that? What's that movie? Anytime the soundtrack goes blah, 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 it's probably not a good sign, no matter how big Iraq is, all right? I'm sure the movie sucks harder than the Florida Marlins do. But give me the Clippers in this spot, baby. Hey, if there's a team that steps up in the playoffs and has a great postseason history, it's the Clippers, right? Right? Come on, sort of. Anybody? But all kidding aside, listen, Harden is balling right now. Paul George is balling right now. And the Dallas Mavericks are kind of a two-man operation. So I can't really justify why the Dallas Mavericks are 3-point favorites in this game. I don't think the people are giving the Clippers enough respect. And as I stated, it's better for business for the NBA to get some games on TV, get some game sevens. Speaking of which, the New York Knicks are going to be going to Philadelphia. And I guarantee you, New York Knicks fan does not take the arena over like they did over the weekend. That was a Sunday afternoon weekend game. Sixer fan was called out for selling their tickets to Knicks fans. Expect the Sixers to actually have a home court advantage on Thursday night in a series that is suddenly becoming seriously lit. Rick Saratella steps up and in. We changed the subject because I'm about to snap. God, I hate Winnipeg.
The 2024 Stanley Cup odds, the Hurricanes remain the favorite, followed by the Panthers and the Rangers. Interesting that they all are coming from the similar side of the bracket.
While the Oilers have the top-end talent, I still don't think they have enough depth, and Stuart Skinner does not scare me in net. So I will take a long series from the Oilers and the Kings, and ultimately I think the Stars are the ones coming out of the West for the Stanley Cup.
The early line, only on SportsGrid.
DraftKings making a progressive move, I think, that most other companies are also going to do or have done in the past. Adding someone from the government or someone you would say in legislation to become their responsible gaming leader here. And in this case, her name is Lori Kalani.
And it'll be interesting to see if other companies try to follow suit in terms of hiring former lobbyists to head responsible gaming.
Newswire, only on SportsGrid.
Game Time had 35 in the first half, Cam. And then, of course, he did not have another point the rest of the game.
Lillard's, it's playoff game time. This guy will show up. He will hit shots. Indiana, you better respond here because I'll tell you, that's a bad loss. We were wrong, Carver. Like, hey, I admit, I was on the Pelicans. This game, I lost.
Pharrell Coast to Coast, only on SportsGrid.
The Twisted Tuesday continues. This is SportsRage. I am Gabriel Morency. Let's do this thing. There's a lot of stuff going on. We've got the NBA playoffs, the NHL playoffs, but of course it was the National Football League draft. Rookie mini camps are next week. The grades are in. Let's get biblical, baby. Rick Saratella steps up and in, the founder of the NFL Draft Bible, allaccessfootball.com, and more. Rick, it's always a pleasure, my man. Let's do this thing.
Hey, the dust has settled. Buckle up. Let's go.
All right, so let's start off at the top with the Chicago Bears. There was no surprise that they took Caleb Williams, but being able to get Roman Dunze as well was quite the score. and we'll go a little bit deeper into the Bears draft. But I know that you like what the Bears did, despite the fact that they didn't really have a lot to work with. There was so much talk about having the top pick, but they didn't have a ton of picks in this draft.
Yeah, only 4 picks in total. Obviously, Caleb Williams is the best pick in the entire draft. That's why he went number 1 overall. But I think what you have is competence at the quarterback position, a supporting cast. They've learned from their mistakes. They learned by the failures of Justin Fields. Give this man some weapons. And I was a little bit surprised. Rome Odunze there at number 9. It was like a draft god descent, fate when they were on the same flight to Detroit for the NFL draft. And I'll tell you what, I was surprised the Giants went with Malik Neighbors. We talked about it last week, how Odunze might be higher for the Giants because of the character concerns. But you have a weapon for Caleb Williams. They go offense again in the 3rd round. My guy right up the road from Yale, Kieran Amagaji, lean, wiry offensive tackle, a little bit of a project. And then Torrey Taylor out of Iowa, the best punter in the draft. Austin Booker, the lone defensive pick in the 5th round, a little bit of pass rush presence.
I love the story of Caleb Williams texting Troy Taylor after he got drafted, and he said, "Congratulations on getting drafted, but you're not gonna work much here. Just for the record, don't expect to punt much." And that's the type of stuff people question Caleb Williams. But he's a good teammate. Like his USC teammates loved him. His Oklahoma Sooner teammates loved him. You see him and Roman Dunze hit it off right away. Not a lot of like first overall picks would send a text message to a punter, bro. Right? He'd be like, yeah, whatever. Good for him. The punter got drafted. I don't care about some 4th round punter. Right? But you see, he's on the phone. Hey, bro, he's building a relationship with everybody right away, this kid.
Well, Caleb Williams has caught the brunt of my wrath here plenty of times leading up to April. But, hey, you got to give credit where credit is due. This kid looks like a winner. You got to love the way he handled himself on draft night, all the interviews, everything he said, all of his actions, man. This guy, I'll tell you what, we saw a history in the making type of rookie sensation year from C.J. Stroud. Caleb Williams is going to say, hold my beer.
How do you feel about taking a punter? I don't have a problem with it. A lot of people are like, oh, you could have went a different spot. I don't think people realize how good this guy actually is. He basically averages like nearly 50 yards a kick, and he kicked in horrible conditions, guys, in Iowa. And he kicked a lot. You're on the Iowa Hawkeyes. You're punting a lot. So he punted a lot in bad conditions. You know, the old coffin corner kicks. He can pin you. He can drop it. He can boom it. He can sky it. He can basically do anything with the football. He's got a powerful leg. And people always talk, Rick, about how special teams, like football, is divided into 3 parts, but they don't actually own up to that. I don't have a problem with this pick. What's your take?
No doubt about it. I will echo all the sentiments that you have to say about Torrey Taylor. He's the real deal, directional punting, pin you down inside the 20, whatever you want. He can do it. But to your point, I travel. I get to see a lot of these NFL training camps, Gabe, and I can tell you one thing. The quality teams in the NFL spend more than a third of their practice time on special teams. Bill Belichick would spend more than half of the practice duration, every practice, on special teams. And it's those teams that pay attention to detail, that do invest and emphasize special teams. And we're going to see it this year with the kickoff rule change. Those who came prepared, those who do their homework, those who studied are going to be up a notch above the rest of the competition. I'm a big, firm believer in special teams. I would always emphasize solidifying special teams in the draft because it's cost effective.
Rick Saratella kicking it with us. So, as you mentioned, C.J. Stroud last year, Will Anderson. Teams didn't do that before, right? They thought, you know what? We want to get the quarterback, and we want to get who we think is the best offensive player, the best defensive player as well, to really, jumpstart our program. And we saw a couple of teams do that this year as well. But another team that you liked is Arizona. And what they did, now they already have their quarterback with Kyler Murray, but they held their ground like I thought they would. They took Marvin Harrison. And then what's your take on getting Darius Robinson out of Missouri with the 27th pick late? I know a lot of people think he was amongst the best of the best. Like he's right up there with everybody else.
Here's what I'm going to tell you, Gabriel Morency. Monty Ossenfort wheeling and dealing. This guy, not only is he one of the most shrewd GMs in terms of draft day trades, moving up, moving down, acquiring draft equity, but targeting guys that not only fit his system, but great value. I mean, you go right up and down this board. Darius Robinson, you talk about Jonathan Gannon, the inside-outside versatility. I said no head coach in the National Football League would be able to utilize this guy talents more than a Jonathan Gannon. Then you come around Max Melton in the second round. I had a first-round grade on him. Another guy, versatility, inside, outside, cornerback depth. The up-front 7 is connected to the secondary and a Jonathan Gannon defense. This is, again, perfect fit. And then Trey Benson, you already had James Conner on the roster. And then in the third round, you draft a better version. A big, fast, physical back that's going to run through you, over you. Can also make you miss in the open field a little bit. Then Isaiah Adams, the Canadian product in the third round, he's going to come in, add some depth on the offensive line. And then Elijah Jones. Oh, my God, I went to the Boston College Pro Day. He really had one of the best cornerback pro days that I've ever witnessed. This guy's a smooth operator, fluid hips, sensational ball skills, a ball hawk. Elijah Jones, remember that name. And then you even go deep day 3, Christian Jones, a 4-year starter out of Texas, underrated offensive tackle. They solidified the trenches on the offense and defensive side of the ball and found value with almost every single pick. Xavier Thomas, the best looking pass rusher at the East-West Shrine Bowl. Oh, my goodness.
Rick Saratella, great breakdown, throwing it down with us. We're coming up against it here, but on the other side, there's so many teams we want to talk about. But I do want to get his take on T'Vondre Sweat and the Tennessee Titans.
The 2024 Stanley Cup odds, the Hurricanes remain the favorite, followed by the Panthers and the Rangers. Interesting that they all are coming from the similar side of the bracket.
While the Oilers have the top-end talent, I still don't think they have enough depth, and Stuart Skinner does not scare me in net. So I will take a long series from the Oilers and the Kings, and ultimately I think the Stars are the ones coming out of the West for the Stanley Cup.
The early line, only on SportsGrid.
DraftKings making a progressive move, I think, that most other companies are also going to do or have done in the past. Adding someone from the government or someone you would say in legislation to become their responsible gaming leader here. And in this case, her name is Lori Kalani.
And it'll be interesting to see if other companies try to follow suit in terms of hiring former lobbyists to head responsible gaming.
Newswire, only on SportsGrid.
Game Time had 35 in the first half, Cam. And then, of course, he did not have another point the rest of the game.
Lillard's, it's playoff game time. This guy will show up. He will hit shots. Indiana, you better respond here because I'll tell you, that's a bad, bad, bad loss. We were wrong, Carver. Like, hey, I admit, I was on the Pelicans. This game, I lost.
Pharrell Coast to Coast, only on SportsGrid.
The Twisted Tuesday continues. This is SportsRage. I'm Morency. We're breaking it down with Rick Saratella. We're going over Rick Saratella's draft grades, which leads us into the Minnesota Vikings, actually. And I'm going in Rick's order. I want to hit the bottom and who he thinks he did the worst as well. But here's another one. So they get their quarterback. Very sort of similar. You want to talk about the Houston Texans.
Yep.
Your Big Ten quarterback. And just for the record, J.J. McCarthy and C.J. Stroud went head-to-head once, and J.J. McCarthy won that game. Just throwing that in there. But So you got a Big Ten quarterback, because I'm sure there's people, J.J. McCarthy's not C.J. Stroud. Yeah, well, C.J. Stroud wasn't C.J. Stroud until he became C.J. Stroud. So everybody calm down with that. But so they get their quarterback with J.J. McCarthy, and then they get Dallas Turner, after who a lot of people thought potentially was the best defensive player in the draft on the odds board. He was the player with the shortest odds to be. And I know a lot of like, Latu, they're saying the same thing. The Colt, like, oh, we got the best effing, guy in the draft. A lot of people are making a contention that they were the best. But what did you think about the Vikings? Top two, and then we can get a little bit more in depth. But perfect fit for JJ and getting Dallas Turner.
Man, I get excited thinking about what Kevin O'Connell's going to do with J.J. McCarthy, the mayhem they're going to create, Jordan Addison, Justin Jefferson. The weapons are all there intact. T.J. Hawkinson, the list goes on and on. Dallas Turner, you talk about possibly the best defensive player to pair with arguably the best quarterback in the draft. I like Caleb. I like J.J. You come back, you get Kyrie Jackson, a big, lengthy 6'3" cornerback for that secondary. You build again on the defense. You come back on day 3. Walter Rouse, again, you talk about a 4 or 5 year starter, began his career at Stanford,
big dude.
Finished up at Oklahoma, who really polishes the offensive lineman. But here's why the Vikings get an A. Levi Drake Rodriguez. If you drafted the kid out of Texas A&M Commerce, I know you were doing your homework. I was down there at the Tropical Bowl in Orlando. The kid had about 10 sacks all week long, and then he had 3 sacks in the game. Levi Drake Rodriguez. Okay, the fact that the Vikings drafted this kid alone, they get kudos and props. A+ for the Minnesota Vikings.
And yeah, Texas A&M Commerce. He went in the 7th round, defensive lineman. We talked about the kid briefly from UBC, Giovanni Manu. Ends up going to the Detroit Lions, a lot higher than some people thought he was going to go. What's your take on that pick?
I'll tell you what, when you have an athletic, raw offensive lineman, you're going to find a team that falls in love. And you know the old saying in the scouting community, you only need to find one person. And I do believe Ryan
Let me
Pace,
just throw in there, Rick. Let me just throw it in there. What, he's 6'7", 350 pounds, and he ran a 4.9.
And I think he had almost like a 40-inch vertical jump. So, I mean, this kid
should be in the NBA.
I'd love to have him as a power forward. But the thing is, like, it's going to be interesting to see how they mesh him into the scheme. And I'll tell you what, man, I'm so excited for this draft.
You know what? I'm fired up too. I like what a lot of teams did, but I'm getting that fever. I love J.J. McCarthy, being a Michigan fan, but it's more than that. I'm not sitting here telling everyone that Cade McNamara is going to be a superstar in the NFL. I don't do it for every quarterback, right? But there's something special about JJ, and I think the Vikings, I like their coaching staff, as you stated. Now they're going to just kick back and figure out, okay, what works, what can JJ do? But I'm really excited. And just how about that division as a whole, Rick? I mean, for a long time, man, this division has been, oh, God, really? Okay, I get it. It was cool when the Bears and Packers were good in the 60s, right? Like, you know what I mean? It was like, it was always brutal. Dude, now the NFC North, it's going to be on TV all the time. Caleb Williams and the Bears. The Detroit Lions are a trendy team. The Minnesota Vikings are like the least talked about team in his division. And we saw Jordan Love's development last year in the Packers. Fun division, Rick.
They're back to being the black and blue Norris division that we used to remember. And I'll tell you, man, I like the Lions. We saw what they did last year. I actually think the Packers have a shot to run the table. I like them that much. And now I think the Vikings are instant contenders with J.J. McCarthy and Caleb Williams. Again, I think the Bears offense, when you take a look at the wide receiver, they're right up there with the Chiefs and Dolphins as far as I'm concerned.
As far as the Lions are concerned, I like when good teams address a need. They needed help in that secondary. And what about them? They were very happy and somewhat surprised that Terry and Arnold was still there at 24.
Yeah, their catchphrase is grit, right? And I said there's not a grittier guy in the NFL draft than Terry and Arnold, and you saw him kind of win over the crowd there in front of, by the way, over 700,000 people in downtown Detroit. And again, I'm talking to the Lions. I think Ryan Pace is a member of that front office staff as an advisor. They talk about they picked the Canadian kid. They selected Sione Vaki out of Utah.
To the 2024 Stanley Cup odds, the Hurricanes remain the favorite, followed by the Panthers and the Rangers. Interesting that they all are coming from the similar side of the bracket.
While the Oilers have the top-end talent, I still don't think they have enough depth, and Stuart Skinner does not scare me in net. So I will take a long series from the Oilers and the Kings, and ultimately I think the Stars are the ones coming out of the West for the Stanley Cup.
The early line, only on SportsGrid.
DraftKings making a progressive move, I think, that most other companies are also going to do or have done in the past. Adding someone from the government or someone you would say in legislation to become their responsible gaming leader here. And in this case, her name is Lori Kalani.
And it'll be interesting to see if other companies try to follow suit in terms of hiring former lobbyists to head responsible gaming.
Newswire, only on SportsGrid.
Game Time had 35 in the first half, Cam. And then, of course, he did not have another point the rest of the game.
Lillard's, it's playoff game time. This guy will show up. He will hit shots. Indiana, you better respond here because I'll tell you, that's a bad, bad, bad loss. We were wrong, Carver. Like, hey, I admit, I was on the Pelicans. This game, I lost.
Pharrell Coast to Coast, only on SportsGrid.
SportsRage Late Night continues. I am Gabriel Morency. We're throwing it down on the SportsGrid Radio and Television Network. Shout out to all of our AM radio affiliates, television network, SiriusXM, Channel 159. Rick Saratella in the house with us. There's so much I want to get to with Rick, but everybody was talking about the Atlanta Falcons and them pulling the trigger on Michael Penix. You and I both like Penix, and I thought he was going in the top 13. I didn't think he was getting through. And, you know, a lot of people were talking about him going in the second round, and they were all over the place. But the Atlanta Falcons dropped the first sort of nuclear bombshell on the NFL draft with them taking Michael Penix. What's your thoughts on it?
Yeah, I'll tell you what, Gabe, you know, the short-sightedness of the mainstream media, I don't understand it because I thought this was a brilliant move. I love Penix. I think he has great upside. And you have Kirk Cousins, the ultimate QB mentor. And people say, well, why do you draft a quarterback if you've paid him all this money? Well, for a number of reasons. Why do you draft Kirk Cousins when you take RG3? Why do you take Kirk Cousins, who has, oh, by the way, Gabe, one career playoff victory in 12 years? This is a hold the fort guy. You want to be an instant contender. You want to have a formidable team. That's Kirk Cousins for you. He'll keep you in contention. But he does not advance you into the playoffs. And Michael Penix has more upside. So when you have a quarterback like Kirk Cousins, you can always flip that dude for a first-round pick, right? So when Penix is ready, they'll hand the keys to the Cadillac over to Michael Penix. I thought it was a brilliant move.
And one thing that we will say, too, people have the sort of mob rules and, oh, my God, anytime a team surprises people. And I actually like the response of the Falcons and what they said. They said just because the masses doesn't think something was a smart thing to do doesn't mean that it wasn't. And you never actually hear GM throw that back at people. But not to mention Kirk Cousins coming off of surgery, right?
Correct.
And Kirk Cousins is often injured. So they could suddenly, and especially in the modern NFL, man, we're seeing multiple quarterbacks. So I sort of get it from that point, but from a sense of, and I get it, there's no feelings in football, but signing a dude, not telling him, and now, like, what happens if Kirk Cousins struggles for the first couple of weeks? Then he's got to look over his shoulder right away, and this is like This is any given Sunday, bro. You know what I mean?
Well, I don't know.
You've got the new
kid.
kid. You got Jamie Foxx in the house now. But I'm just saying it's awkward.
Well, it can be, but this is what Kirk Cousins has been in this situation his whole life. It's nothing new to him. He's always been a mentor or a backup or in a controversy, and he's a professional. And by the way, when he looks down at his bank account, there's a lot of zeros there. So I don't feel too bad for Kirk Cousins, all right? He's going to be okay.
No, I don't feel bad for him, but it did rattle him. I mean, they didn't make that up. What his agent basically said, what the hell was this? We were never told about this.
Well, I think his agent, I know Mike McCarthy, and I think his agent responded to a text. I don't think his agent expected it to be plastered across ESPN and everywhere else. He just answered a question honestly. Had he known it was going to get out there like that, he probably would have done it differently. But, yeah, hey, put your big boy pants on and buckle up.
No, it's the NFL. I got it. Listen, I got it. And like I said, there's no feelings in the NFL. So I totally understand that, but I could also argue that if you liked a young quarterback, why don't you just take the young quarterback? And you could have taken the money or you could have drafted a player. To me, it's not so much I don't care about Kirk Cousins' feelings, Rick. To me, it's the strategy of the money that you're spending, and you're close to winning. You could have drafted, I don't know, one of these defensive linemen, bro. That's my take.
It's a philosophy. Were the Packers better for drafting Jordan Love and letting him sit behind Aaron Rodgers for 3 years? It's a different approach. Some people want to plug and play. Some people want to grow and develop.
No, I know. And I don't want to be a hypocrite because we all know, I used to always say, you got to give these guys years and stuff. In the old days, they didn't even play right away. Right? I get that. But Jordan Love was 21. There's a difference.
The Falcons owner wants to be competitive. Kirk Cousins can do that for you, but he can only take you so far. The upside is in Penix. He can take you the distance.
So one team that I already liked their offseason before the draft was the Tennessee Titans. I just like the toughness that they're building here. You can see they're sort of like the San Francisco 49ers of the South. They're sort of taking this approach. Big dudes, talent, but they're looking for size. They're looking for mean dudes. And so I like bringing in Calvin Ridley. I wouldn't have paid Pollard as much money as they did, but they had money to spend, so I don't have a problem with it. It's not my money. But then you look at the draft here. This theme continues, doesn't it, Rick? With just mean dudes. You know what I'm saying? You bring in a J.C. Latham here, and Coach Saban, I thought, did a great job on the air breaking it down, and he was honest with it, especially with his own guys. He said, listen, sometimes he's going to jump offside and, he's going to get excited and he might take a penalty every now and then because he gets fired up. But he goes, this guy, is a beast. Basically said, this guy wants to push you around and dominate on the line. So you bring in this big mountain of a man. And then you and I talked about T'Vondre Sweat. And we just said there's no crying in the NFL. It's all right, he got arrested for drunk driving. Don't do it again. I almost rather he did it now. Get it out of his system, bro. In the grand scheme of things, he's a hell of a football player, and he's going to have a chip on his shoulder, and he's another mean son of a bitch on the field. What's your take on the Titans?
Yeah, my initial impression, I didn't like it too much because J.C. Latham was actually my 40th ranked overall player. I thought it was a little bit high there, but hey, he's your fit. I get it. But you look at T'Vondre Sweat. We talked about it. Top 25 talent for me, the hardest person to block in this NFL draft. We saw that down in Mobile. So they're going to get tougher in the trenches, no doubt about it. They upgraded there. And, hey, Cedric Gray in the 4th round out of North Carolina possibly can compete for a starting job. They did some good things there on the back end. But you're right. Tennessee, man, it all starts in the trenches. I got questions about the quarterback. But, man, I think Sweat, one of the best value picks to offset Latham, I thought was probably the biggest reach inside the 1st round. I liked Olu Fashanu. I liked Fontenot. I liked the kid out of Oregon State, all ahead of J.C. Latham.
Yeah, one thing I'll say about J.C. is that I get he's not as athletic as all those other dudes. And Saban basically talked about his footwork even. He goes, yeah, he needs some work on his footwork. He's got the size, but like I said, Tennessee, though, seemed to want this, mean streak with people. Right? They're looking, they identify guys, and that's the way teams operate. This is the dude, because as you stated, I understand, he wasn't rated as high. Now, San Francisco, a lot of people are baffled by the Ricky Pearsall acquisition and pick. It screwed me because I had him going over 44.5, so I wasn't overly happy. You know what's crazy? I had Blake Corum under 82.5, and he won 83rd. I lost by half a pick. I lost by half a pick. So
I was
the Buffalo Bills, they get Keon Coleman, who I actually like Keon Coleman. So, everybody, thought the Bills were going to get a wide receiver. I don't like the Bills helping the Kansas City Chiefs under any circumstances.
Yeah.
That's my situation. Like, I don't care if you got Barry Sanders after. What are you helping the Chiefs for? Like, don't say, well, we weren't going to take that guy anyways. Fine, but don't help them. That's not your problem. That's their problem. Right? Like, you just say, no, we're taking a guy we like, and, hey, we hope it works out for you, but we can't help you out on this one. Like, I don't like it. And their defense is, well, they were going to do what they're going to do anyways, and we got an extra third-round pick out of it. It's like, okay, that's going to be real fun when Xavier Worthy scores a winning touchdown against the Bills in the playoffs this year, isn't it?
You got to know the circumstances and situations, right? And I'm starting to think like the Bills are just some weird dudes, right? Like that whole 9/11 thing.
I can't even believe we're out of time already, Rick. 20 seconds. Sorry, it could be fast.
All right,
you didn't like it.
I'll tell you what. You don't give the fastest man in the NFL to your conference competitors. Dumb move.
Yeah.
The 2024 Stanley Cup odds, the Hurricanes remain the favorite, followed by the Panthers and the Rangers. Interesting that they all are coming from the similar side of the bracket.
While the Oilers have the top-end talent, I still don't think they have enough depth, and Stuart Skinner does not scare me in net. So I will take a long series from the Oilers and the Kings, and ultimately I think the Stars are the ones coming out of the West for the Stanley Cup.
The Early Line, only on SportsGrid.
DraftKings making a progressive move, I think, that most other companies are also going to do or have done in the past. Adding someone from the government or someone you would say in legislation to become their responsible gaming leader here. And in this case, her name is Lori Kalani.
And it'll be interesting to see if other companies try to follow suit in terms of hiring former lobbyists to head responsible gaming.
Newswire, only on SportsGrid.
Game Time had 35 in the first half, Cam. And then, of course, he did not have another point the rest of the game.
Lillard's, it's playoff game time. This guy will show up. He will hit shots. Indiana, you better respond here because I'll tell you, that's a bad, bad, bad loss. We were wrong, Carver. Like, hey, I admit, I was on the Pelicans. This game, I lost.
Pharrell Coast to Coast, only on SportsGrid.
Well, the playoffs continue. The ups and downs, the roller coaster that are the NBA and the NHL playoffs. The Vancouver Canucks looking to win their first playoff series at home, since like 2015, 9 years. And a lot of excitement in the city. It's a scoreless game after two periods. The Canucks score. They're all over them. The crowd is seriously going crazy. Nashville tie the hockey game up. And then they score again. Nashville scored two quick goals. It's 2-1 for the Nashville Predators right now. And if the Predators win, they'll play on Thursday. in Nashville, back to Smashville. And then incidentally, if it goes 7, they would play Sunday night in Vancouver. An interesting small little quick tidbit about the arena in Vancouver for the weekend is that Pearl Jam are playing there. So Pearl Jam have the building booked for Saturday and Monday, yet I don't think they thought they were going to have to tear down everything in between, which they might have to, right? Which it's not impossible, but it's not, it's not ideal, right? Like, so Pearl Jam would play on Saturday night, the hockey game would be on Sunday, and then Pearl Jam would play on Monday again. So Pearl Jam would have to set up, tear down, they'll set the rink up, and then have to, do it all over again, the process. So I guess, hey, it's positive. It'll help the economy. People are going to get paid because there's going to be some work to be done. We'll see if the Canucks are able to tie this game with 5 minutes left and send it to overtime. There's been a lot of crazy drama. The Colorado Avalanche have advanced and have eliminated the Winnipeg Jets. The Toronto Maple Leafs tonight were facing elimination, and the Leafs are one of the most heartless teams in professional sport. So the expectations were not high for them tonight to extend the series. But with that being stated, the Leafs have actually been pretty good on the road in the playoffs. They've lost 6 consecutive home playoff games, which is not good, right? You just point blank. You're not going to win playoff series if you can't win at home. So, they're 0-6, their last 6 home playoff games. Incidentally, Nashville are 0-5. Nashville have lost 5 straight home playoff games. So they could be going back to Nashville, but it wouldn't shock me if the Canucks scored and sent this to overtime, just to torture people that are in the building right now. The Dodgers are in the building in Arizona, and Ohtani is up right now. We have a 1-1 game. If you're wondering why it's only in the 5th inning this late, there was a delay tonight. There was a swarm of bees that was around the batting cage area and the netting behind home plate. It was quite a long. Ohtani just struck out in a 1-1 game. Dodgers have runners on second and third. There's 2 out now. So, yeah, I don't know how long officially it was, 90 minutes. It felt like it was nearly 2 hours. It was a pretty long delay, actually. And the beekeeper, actually, that they called in to rectify the situation threw out the first pitch. So Freeman's up right now in a 1-1 game, 2 out. Runners on second and third, top of 5. 5 minutes left in Vancouver right now. They lead the series 3-1, and they're down 2-1 with under 5 minutes remaining. They are pressing right now. As I said, I kind of think they're going to score. And then, who knows what will happen if they get it to overtime after. But I get the feeling there's a goal coming by the Vancouver Canucks in the next 4 minutes. And what does it pay right now? The Canucks plus a $1.50 is minus 185. The total is 4.5 right now. We're at 3. I have a lot of money tied up here already, actually. Let's see. All right. If we could hit this. Over is plus money right now at plus 130. I think it probably gets there. Like I said, if Vancouver score, there's 5 minutes left, and Vancouver are good at scoring fast. We saw them score 2 goals the other day, when they pulled their goalie, right? So Vancouver, boom, you win the bet, you get the 4 automatically. And or Vancouver are going to pull their goalie. So Nashville could score, and if Vancouver are down by 2, they'll pull their goalie again, right? So the 4.5, I think it's not a bad bet at over. You're getting plus 150 actually. Right now, the clock is ticking. There's 4:20 left in the game. Vancouver don't pull the goalie too quickly, though. Some teams will pull the goalie pretty quick, on 3 minutes or something like that. Vancouver are more chill, more 1.5 minutes or 2 type of deal. So we'll keep our eye on this game. Shout out to Rick Saratella for joining us, talking NFL football. We couldn't get to every team. These segments just absolutely fly by. We got a lot of Philadelphia Eagle fans in our chat that are excited about the Eagles draft. Listen, Eagles generally always kill the draft. They're very good at the draft. The Eagles always get guys that people always wonder, how come no one else took this player after? And then they're actually good, and other teams passed on the player. Quinyon Mitchell is a good example, right? Quinyon Mitchell was projected by a lot of sharp people I'm not even talking from a betting perspective, but from a scouting perspective, a lot of people said that they thought he was the best cornerback in the draft. Now, the one knock on Mitchell, and doesn't mean it's true or it's right, but I'm just stating why some teams got put off and why didn't he go higher, was the fact that he played in a MAC. He played for Toledo, and the overall speed and skill of the MAC isn't top tier. In fact, it's the worst conference. And I like the MAC, so no offense to the MAC, but the Sun Belt is better, right? It used to be the Sun Belt. Sun Belt has become good. So the MAC is the worst conference out of the D1 conferences. But it doesn't mean they don't have good players. But the thing with Mitchell is, anybody that watched the draft coverage too, and I saw Nick Saban talking about him before the draft, and he said about Mitchell he said, yeah, he played at Toledo, but he said because he wanted to play at Toledo, right? It wasn't because he couldn't play at a big-time school. And Saban even said there was a little controversy after. People were like, did Saban tamper with this kid? Saban said, I called this kid and tried to get him to come to Alabama, but he said, I'm staying at Toledo. So it wasn't a case, like I said. So, if Saban wanted you to play at Alabama, he basically thought this kid was like big time. Cooper DeJean, I don't fully get. It seemed to me that Cooper DeJean is one of those players that the media liked more than teams did. He's a versatile player. I think they got turned off by him coming off of an injury.
To the 2024 Stanley Cup odds, the Hurricanes remain the favorite, followed by the Panthers and the Rangers. Interesting that they all are coming from the similar side of the bracket.
While the Oilers have the top-end talent, I still don't think they have enough depth, and Stuart Skinner does not scare me in net. So I will take a long series from the Oilers and the Kings, and ultimately I think the Stars are the ones coming out of the West for the Stanley Cup.
The early line, only on SportsGrid.
DraftKings making a progressive move, I think, that most other companies are also going to do or have done in the past. Adding someone from the government or someone you would say in legislation to become their responsible gaming leader here. And in this case, her name is Lori Kalani.
And it'll be interesting to see if other companies try to follow suit in terms of hiring former lobbyists to head responsible gaming.
Newswire, only on SportsGrid.
Game Time had 35 in the first half, Cam. And then, of course, he did not have another point the rest of the game.
Lillard's, it's playoff game time. This guy will show up. He will hit shots. Indiana, you better respond here because I'll tell you, that's a bad loss. We were wrong, Carver. I admit, I was on the Pelicans. This game, I lost.
Pharrell Coast to Coast, only on SportsGrid.
We have an empty net right now in Vancouver. Nashville are up 2-1 with a $1:05 left. They're partying right now at the viewing party in Smashville, Tennessee, hoping to host another game. Game 6 would be Thursday, then a potential Game 7 on Sunday night if the Canucks can't score. There's 50 seconds left. The Canucks have pulled the goalie, and they do have possession of the puck. One thing with Vancouver, they kind of always look for that perfect play, and it works out for them. They pulled it off with 6 seconds left in the last game, but they're running out of time here. In the puck, now they're really running out of time. They've got like one more drive left. There's 30 seconds left. They're into the zone. They keep like the puck keeps like bouncing out. Nashville aren't clearing it, but Vancouver keeps sort of passing it out, and they got to redump it back in again. And they really are running out of time now. 17 seconds remaining in the game. I've got Vancouver plus 1.5 as well. So if they lose the game, they lose the game. But hopefully I don't get screwed on an empty net goal here in the last 7 seconds. Here it is. And this game is now over. The Nashville Predators survive and extend the series tonight. So there was 4 games tonight. They were all elimination games. And the Toronto Maple Leafs were able to extend it to Game 6. The New York Islanders were not. The Winnipeg Jets were not. And the Nashville Predators extended to Game 6. So the Preds win 2-1 final score in Vancouver. Wow, what a wild night tonight. Of like the emotion of the playoffs is gut-wrenching. And specifically, too, for like fans that are in the building and they're just showing like Canuck fans just like gutted right now. And the same way Nashville fans were a couple of days ago when Vancouver scored 2 goals in the final 2 minutes, right? Nick fans tonight, right? The Philadelphia 76ers, let's stick a dagger. Like Madison Square Garden, the roof was about to blow up and blow off the roof, man, at Penn Station tonight. And then Maxey hits a late 3, goes to overtime. Everybody goes home in shock and disappointed. We've talked about it. And you see it in the NBA. You see it in the NHL. You know, you want home court. You want home ice, but it's not what it used to be. Let's just call it out for what it is. And oftentimes, to me, it doesn't matter until Game 7. I'd prefer to have the deciding game at home. But look at, we talk about it. The Nashville Predators are a good example who just won. They've lost 5 straight home playoff games. Toronto Maple Leafs lost 6 straight home playoff games. They won on the road tonight. Can they win at home now? Right? The Knicks. They got back home. You figure, the Garden, right? It's going to be rocking. Yeah, it was. But sometimes it can backfire on teams when it's rocking. The home team can get caught up in it. But wild night tonight. This show just flew by. So listen, we got a scheduling a program alert and announcement. But we are on throughout the week, which is good news. But on Thursday and Friday, so this is everybody, specifically San Diego, Southern California, Tijuana, up and down the coast, the Rockies. But for our AM radio affiliates, there's no level 3 on Thursday and Friday. We're going to be on only for the first 2 hours on Thursday. So 2-hour shows on Thursday and Friday due to SportsGrid airing the Live Tour. The Live, and it's in Singapore. So basically we're getting preempted for golf in the middle of the night in Singapore. Hey, it's going to happen. Somebody told me many years ago in the radio industry, you can't get upset if you're preempted for a live sporting event, right? And I was like, yeah, all right. So, but nevertheless, we're going to be on. We're going to be on though Thursday and Friday, but just for the first 2 hours. So 2-hour shows on Thursday and Friday. You've been warned. We're going to jam pack. There'll be a lot of guests, in other words, for the next because we got a lot of guests on Thursday and Friday in the last hours of the show. So tomorrow night, we're going to be on. We're going to be coming on. The LA Kings and Edmonton Oilers game will just be starting when we start the show tomorrow night. You figure the Oilers win, but we see nothing's guaranteed in the NHL. Vegas and Dallas tomorrow, though. This game is going to be on at 7:30 Eastern time, so I'll throw you my pick now. I actually do like the Dallas Stars. I like the Stars before the series started. They lost the first 2 at home. Talking about how home ice doesn't mean anything. They lost the first 2 at home. They win the 2 on the road. But I think they're going to nail down a home game here, knowing that it's going to be tough to win in Vegas. So you get up 3-2. This thing's probably going 7. Give me the Dallas Stars tomorrow night. And a quick hit as far as the NBA. And we're starting to get a little bit of a groove in the NBA right now, playoffs. We hit the Orlando Magic tonight. Give me the LA Clippers tomorrow night. Clippers +3. Other than that, you're on your own. Later.